In this video, I'd like to demonstrate the processes and procedures that I've had success with when bending aluminum to form parts, such as the rib for your airfoil project. The first thing you'll need to make sure is that you've checked with your instructor after laying out your layout onto the piece of aluminum, that it's been all correct, and that you're sure that the sight lines are in the correct location. The sight lines being the most important lines in your layout. I have colored them red. You can use a contrasting color from the other lines on your layout. Just make sure that you can positively identify the sight lines from all the other lines on your layout. Before using the brake, we want to make sure that we have a serviceable tool. So I'll lift the nose bar up using the bending leaf handle, and I'll check underneath the nose bar with my hand and feel that there's no foreign objects, glue, any damage of any sort, and also the bed. Just run your fingers along the bed with your hand. Make sure. If you do find something, use a piece of abrasive pad and alcohol if you need to. If not, you can just use it dry and rub along underneath the nose bar and on the bed and the bending leaf area, making sure that your tool is nice and clean and serviceable. The first thing we'll check is the clamping pressure for the material that we're going to bend. In this case here, the material will be 032 aluminum for the rib. The procedures and the items that I'll be referencing to in this video are located on the chart, which is directly behind the bending brake. So I'll place my 032 aluminum underneath the nose bar, bring down the nose bar with the bending handle, and I don't bring it down all the way. It is an over-centering type handle, so you don't want to pull it down all the way over-centered at this point. Just bring it down lightly and make sure you can still move the 032 piece of scrap aluminum at this end of the brake. Lift up the handle, come down to the other end. Once again, gently bring the handle down, and I can wiggle my 032 aluminum underneath the nose bar because it still has the protective plastic on it. Raise it up. Come down with the nose bar, and now you want to fully over-center the nose bar down onto the piece of material. Lift up the nose bar, and this will check if you have the correct clamping pressure. It'll leave a slight mark onto the L-clad, but definitely not making a scratch or creating any mechanical damage onto the L-clad. So put my protective plastic back on again, go to the other end of the brake, lift up the nose bar, come down, over center, and raise it back up. Peel back my plastic. Once again, check. There's a slight scuff mark on there, a burnishing mark onto my L-clad, but no distortion or damage. So in this case here, I've got the bending brake set for the correct clamping pressure for 032 aluminum. If the 032 aluminum that I'm using got marked, it was too much clamping pressure, or after I had over-centered it, I was still able to wiggle my piece, insufficient clamping pressure, then I'd have to adjust the clamping pressure. To adjust the clamping pressure, we have these nuts on the side here, identified item number 60 in the diagram. These nuts should only be finger tight. So here the handle's down, the upper nut is snug, and I lift the handle up, the lower nut is snug. When I'm adjusting these nuts, I want to make sure that I adjust both of them together, and it's only with using my fingers. And so just by wiggling the handle back and forth, I can loosen the top nut or the bottom nut as required, and then adjust it both in the counterclockwise direction, raising the nose bar if I have too much clamping pressure, or by adjusting the top nut in a clockwise direction and the counterclock and the lower nut in the same direction. 1 or 2 flats at a time at the most is what you would want to adjust. And after it's been adjusted, a flat or 2, bring back in your practice material and check that it is not able to move or with great amount of difficulty once the handle has been over-centered. And if it's not over-centered, if just gently, you should be able to wiggle it. So when it is over-centered, you want it to hold it firm so that it has a great deal of resistance to wanting to move underneath the nose bar. Then I want to set my setback of the nose bar for my sight line. To do this, raise the bending leaf 90 degrees to the nose bar. O32 material is what I'll be using for bending, so I have 2 pieces of scrap O32 here, and I'll place them together. The amount of setback that the bending leaf has from the nose bar should be a minimum of 1 material thickness. Maximum of 2 material thicknesses. So no greater than 2 material thicknesses, but definitely no less than 1 material thickness, especially if you're going to be going over 90 degrees. If you're going over 90 degrees, then you'll want to have at least 2 material thicknesses of gap. So here I've got it set at 90 degrees, and I'll insert my my 2 pieces of scrap material, 2 pieces of O32 into the nose bar area, and I'm going to rotate the nose bar adjustment knob, number 23, at the back of the brake, and I'll adjust it in the counterclockwise direction, and you see that it pulls the nose bar back away from the bending leaf, and as I rotate it in the counterclockwise direction, it comes towards, and have it so it just touches, and I can get my material back in again. And I'm going to repeat the same process now on the other side of the brake. So here I am on the other side of the brake. I stick in my scrap pieces into the nose bar, and it doesn't fit. So I have to open up my gap by rotating this knob counterclockwise. Now I have a gap in there. Make sure I have a fairly good gap in there. And then I rotate my knob in the other direction, clockwise direction, and it gets a little tighter. And just as it's getting snug, that's where I want to stop. So I can still get two thicknesses of O32 material in between the nose bar and the bending leaf, the face of the bending leaf. Always ending the adjustment in the closing direction, so the gap is being closed. Go back on this side of the brake, double check that the adjustment here hasn't moved. I can still get 2 layers of material into between the bending leaf and the nose bar. Rotate the bending leaf down. Now I have adjusted the clamping pressure for O32, and I've adjusted the setback of the brake for O32 material. Once the brake has been properly set, now I can begin to bend my airfoil rib. I'm going to place the rib under the brake. You can do it in the center of the brake if you wish, but it's a little more convenient in this case here because I'm only bending a 3-inch piece to come over to the end where I can comfortably reach the handle. And I'll use the radius bar lifting handle and lift the radius bar and slide my piece underneath. And just bring the handle down gently. Don't clamp it at this time. Moving my eyes over top of the rib, perpendicular to my material, and adjusting the handle back and forth. I want to ensure that my sight line, which is the red colored line in this case here, is directly below the front of the nose bar when my eyes are directly above it, perpendicular to it. Using a piece of scrap aluminum or your ruler, you can come up against the front of the nose bar and visually see that the red line is at the corner of the material. I like to have a square, and I set it right to the end of the square. I like to use this tri-square, and I'll set it onto the nose bar. And I want to ensure that my rib center line is perpendicular to the nose bar. Using a soft wooden mallet, a piece of wood, or a rubber mallet, in this case here I'm going to use a rubber mallet, I can, holding my square there, I can gently tap my material so that it is perpendicular to the face of the nose bar. Once again, use a piece of my scrap material, lay it down here, and I can see that my sight line slightly moved underneath the bar, so I don't like that, so I'm going to move it out again. This is where it's nice to have two people, somebody to lift that handle for you, and you can put both your hands onto your material and clamp it. In this case here, I'm just going to use my shoulder, and I'll just lean on it a bit, and it'll release the pressure. I'll pull it slightly out with my hand, release the pressure, double check. Yeah, now I've got it the correct distance out. I will double check that it's still perpendicular to the nose bar. A little tap over here. That's it. The center line on my rib is perpendicular to the nose bar. The sight line directly below the front of the nose bar. Holding my eyes perpendicular over top here, I can see that I've got it in the correct amount. At this point here, now I want to clamp down, pull over center on these handles. Make sure you pull over center on this handle and that handle at both ends, clamping my rib firmly under the bending brake. To bend it 90 degrees, reach down to the handle, raise the bending leaf, up. You'll have to go beyond 90 degrees. You'll see as you relax, the material will come back. You'll have to go beyond 90 degrees, and it's just a matter of feel. There's no scientific calculation for this. It's called spring back. Your material will want to spring back, so you have to kind of just eyeball it, going over 90 degrees, until you're looking at it from the side. It appears to be about 90 degrees. So lower the bending leaf, raise the nose bar, use your set square or a machinist square, either one will do. And I like to set it at an even number, 4 inches, 5 inches, something like that. Set it right on the 5-inch mark. A square, hold it up here, hold it up to the light, and take a look and see, oh, there's a little bit of gap in there, so I still haven't gone quite 90 degrees yet. But at this time here, I can also look at the square and see that my flange happens to be 3/4 of an inch. It's 3/4 of an inch at this end and 3/4 of an inch at that end, meaning that I had the sight line in the correct location. For a slight amount of angle adjustment, 2 or 3 degrees, you can bend that with your finger. If you've got more than 2 or 3 degrees, up to 5 degrees, then you'll want to stick that back underneath the brake, nose bar, lift up the nose bar, set it back in all the way, pull it over center, and when you're applying hand pressure to reform it, keep your fingers or your hand pressure near the area where it's being bent, as opposed to trying to bend using as a lever back here, right? So this area here, just a couple little tweaks with your hand, and look at it again. It looks a little better this time. Raise the nose bar, double check, and look at that. Perfectly 90-degree bend and 3/4 of an inch. And that completes the first bend. The forward flange has now been bent, and I'm going to continue on demonstrating how to bend the side flanges. When I place the rib under the nose bar, if I placed it here, you would see that the forward flange will interfere with the nose bar. So I need to place it so that the forward flange is beyond the end of the nose bar. So I'll adjust it as good as I can. My eyes, keep my eyes perpendicular to bending brake. The sight line is, the red sight line is directly underneath the nose bar. Once again, I use my scrap piece of material. I can check, yeah, sight line's good. Sight line's good. So then I'll pull down, over centering my clamping pressure. Reach down, raise the bending leaf. Now I'll have to definitely go beyond 90 degrees, probably a good 110 degrees or so. And it looks like I have a pretty good angle there, 90 degrees. So I'll pull it out, grab my square, check it again, hold it up to the light, and look at that, 90 degrees and 3/4 of an inch at this end, and I've got 90 degrees and 3/4 of an inch at the other end. It's a little bit larger than 3/4, about a 32nd of an inch larger. So now I'm going to bend the other flange. I'll have to go to the other end of the brake. Lift the nose bar up. And this is where, once again, it's handy to have someone else giving you a hand, so you don't have to work cross-hand like I am. Making sure the forward flange here is going to be off the end of the nose bar, much the same as the other side. I get my sight line underneath. I can use my rubber mallet to tap it in if I need to. It's easier to tap it in than just tap it out. Yeah, sight line is directly below my nose bar, so that I can continue to clamp down both ends. And I'll bend up. And you'll notice as I'm bending up here that the flange, the upper flange, is distorting. It's hitting the nose bar. Don't let that bother you at this time. Make sure that you get the other flange 90 degrees. Work the brake back and forth. Pull it out. Once again, check the piece that I've just made. It's pretty close to 90 degrees. Yeah, pretty close to 90 degrees. And the other flange that was hitting the nose bar here has got a slight warp into it. And so I can just work that out with my fingers. Just applying a thumb pressure there, squeezing it, working it out with my fingers, and checking with my eye, making sure that the flange is nice and straight. Both flanges are nice and straight, so the little 2 to 3 degree imperfection in your angle can be straightened quite easily with your fingers. And there I have a nicely formed rib, 3/4 inch flanges all the way around.